Welcome back. I hope you had a lovely dinner and lovely chats. Now we're going to hear from Nellie, who's going to share her story of hoping in God through a season of suffering. Thanks, Nellie. Guys, before we hear from Kate, we're going to open our Bibles. So in your groups, get someone to read out for you from Revelation 21, and Kate will talk to us in just a moment.
Well, this time next week, I'll be in Byron Bay, and honestly, I cannot wait. Beautiful beaches, a quirky town, luxurious resort, bring it on. It's been a hard year for me, like it has been for many. There have been relational, social, financial, and health stresses for so many of us. I'm tired. I've been anxious, fearful, sad, angry, frustrated, disappointed. I'm sure you have been too. But right now, with my holiday due to start in just 3 sleeps, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling optimistic. I'm excited and eagerly anticipating a fun and restful time. Life feels much more manageable when there's something to look forward to, doesn't it? It's easier to put up with frustrating work, annoying children, tense relational moments when you know that soon you'll be kicking back by the pool. And it's like that with our Christian hope. When life is hard, looking to our future can give us comfort and strength to keep going. So, what is that future hope? Well, do a Google Images search on heaven and this is what you get. And that's what we see in movies and on TV, in advertising and on social media. And I don't know about you, but clouds and harps are not my idea of a crazy fun time. That's not how I want to spend eternity. And thankfully, I don't have to. See, the Christian hope for the future is a resurrected body, a new creation, the end of sin and suffering, and a joy-filled eternity with Jesus. So firstly, the Christian hope is a resurrected body. We aren't going to be ghosts or angels. We are going to have physical bodies. And when I hear that, my first question is, well, what is this physical body going to be like? The Bible doesn't spell it out in specific detail, but it does give us some information on what our resurrected bodies will be like. I'm looking at 1 Corinthians 15:20, and it tells us that we can consider Jesus' body a prototype for what our body will be like. It says, Christ has indeed been raised from the dead, the first fruits of those who have fallen asleep. His resurrection body is the first fruits for what our resurrection body will be like. I love jasmine. It's one of my favourite flowers, and it's all over my back fence. And just last week, the first white little flowers started to appear, signalling that more would come. And sure enough, in no time at all, the whole fence was covered in those white, sweet-smelling flowers. And the first flower is just like the ones that follow it. So it is with our resurrection bodies. Jesus' body will be just like the ones that follow it. And when we look at Jesus after his resurrection, we see a number of things. He was recognizable as himself. So he must have looked and sounded the same because his disciples knew who he was. He could be touched. He ate with them. He conversed with them. He still had the wounds from his crucifixion. He was very much in a physical body. And so we will be too. You will be very much yourself. You will recognize your loved ones, and they will recognize you. You will eat and work and play. And this physical body will not be completely new. It's not like we kind of unzip this one, cast it aside, and pick a new one from the rack, as fun as that might be. But nor do we get our old body just kind of patched up. No, there will be continuity, but also change. A transformation, a maturation of what we already have. Well, what will that transformation look like? 1 Corinthians 15:42-43 tells us. The body that is sown perishable will be raised imperishable. The body sown in dishonor will be raised in glory. The body sown in weakness will be raised in power. The bodies we're in now, they're perishable, dishonorable, weak. I'm certainly more acutely aware of this now in my late 30s than I was in my early 20s, and I'm sure it will only become more apparent as time goes on. And you know that, right? We don't have the same energy we once did. Our bodies ache more than they used to. There's more wrinkles, more scars, more stretch marks. Bones creak, joints crack. And no matter how carefully we look after it, no matter how much exercise we do, what moisturizers we use, what food we eat, our bodies still go precariously downhill. And it will only get worse from here. Decay is setting in. And one day our body will fail completely. But soon, our bodies will be transformed. And our new bodies will be imperishable, glorious, powerful, and animated by the Holy Spirit. This means that they cannot succumb to death and decay. They are immortal, incorruptible. They don't get sick or tired. They aren't subject to injury or disease. They won't let us down. A good family friend of mine died a few years ago. She was only in her late 60s and she'd suffered brain damage about a decade ago. She lived the last 10 years of her life in a nursing home. Her speech was slurred. Her memory came and went. Her limbs were uncoordinated. Eventually, disease crept in and her body failed. As a young woman, she loved to dance. And to watch her dance was a thing of beauty. She was captivating. But she hadn't danced in years. Her body had decayed, was corrupted and ruined. But when she is resurrected, she will dance again. Her body will be transformed, her lowly body made like Christ's glorious one. And what a splendid moment that will be. Those are the moments we can all look forward to. We will each have that experience. The transformation of our lowly bodies into ones that are imperishable, glorious, powerful, and spiritual. The Christian hope is a resurrected body. And this resurrected body will live in a new creation. Let's turn to Revelation 21:1. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away. This is the new creation. The word heaven here means sky, so a new sky and a new earth. And just like our earthly bodies, just like our bodies will be physical bodies, this will be a physical creation. Well, what's it going to be like? Well, can you imagine trying to describe to a baby in the womb what life is like on the outside? It would be impossible. The baby just doesn't have the capacity to imagine anything other than what it knows. And so it is with John, the author of Revelation, trying to describe to us this new creation. We just don't have the capacity to understand. So he uses pictures and symbols to help us imagine the new creation, and he uses the metaphor of a city. And we see in verse 1 that there is no sea, and in verses 12 to 14 that the city has a great high wall and 12 gates. Now the wall is about 65 metres thick. That's the length of the Phillip Street Mall from Munch to Brick Lane. That is a thick wall. And the gates are single, giant pearls. And in ancient literature, the sea is the place where evil comes from, a place of fear and terror. But we see there's no sea in the city, so there is no evil, and the wall and the gate keep us safe. So what are you scared of? What do you fear? Whatever it is, it can't hurt you in the city. Nothing can harm us there. No evil can get to us. No danger can befall us. And this city is enormous. Verses 15 to 18 describe a perfect cube, and it is about 400 times the size of New York. It's massive. Why is it so big? Well, because there's room for everyone. Jesus himself in John 14 promises that he has prepared a room in his Father's house for us. This city is built for a massive population, a great multitude. Every single one of God's people throughout the ages will have a place. No one is going to miss out. And the city is made of pure gold, verse 18, and decorated with precious stones, verses 19 to 21. This city is indescribably precious and beautiful beyond words. What's the most beautiful place you've ever visited? I thought of Switzerland with jagged mountain peaks cutting a flawless blue sky, white snow swirling, each snowflake unique. I recalled the beaches of Hawaii, basking on pure white sand, dipping into the turquoise ocean to discover fish and coral in all the colours of the rainbow. I thought of wandering through the rainforests of Queensland with their lush green foliage, their secret waterfalls, their sultry air. The beauty of those places? It will be but a grainy 1950s black and white Polaroid compared to the beauty of this city. And this city shines with the glory of God. Verse 23, it does not need the sun or the moon, for God gives it its light, and the Lamb is its lamp. My husband Brian is from Perth, and we had some of his friends stay with us over New Year's Eve a long time ago before Corona and kids. We decided to make the mammoth effort to see the New Year's fireworks over the harbour. So we fought for a park, we scrambled over rocks at Bull's Head Reserve, we waited on the rock for hours and hours until finally midnight. And the sky exploded in a riot of colour and light, and we were floored. But those fireworks that go for 12 minutes in every colour imaginable, that prompt gasps of delight and awe from the crowd, they will be but the merest flicker of a little birthday candle compared to the light in the city. So there you have it, not a literal description, but a metaphor that tells us the city is safe, with room for everyone, that it is beautiful beyond words, and it is lit by God Himself. And in that city, there will be no sin and no suffering. Sin, it's ever present, isn't it? It has the ability to taint everything. It entices and entangles, and I wonder if you struggle with your sin. I do. I often feel discouraged and disheartened, painfully aware of my shortcomings and failures, frustrated with my inability to change. I am proud. I am envious. I lack self-control. I get impatient with my children. But in the new creation, we won't struggle anymore. Can you imagine? You won't struggle to contain your anger. You won't regret the hurtful things you said without thinking. You won't carry the guilt of your secret vices or the shame of letting down those you love. You'll be free from that. What a sweet relief that will be. You will be perfected. And this means that those with us in the new creation, our fellow believers, will also have been perfected. We will enjoy fellowship with one another that is free from sin, joyful fellowship, intimate relationships. There's a person in my life with whom I have a difficult relationship. Whatever I say, they take it the wrong way. Despite my best intentions, I seem to let them down. No matter how hard I try, I can't get it right. I love them, and this hurts me. I am so looking forward to that relationship being perfected. For in the new creation, there won't be any conflict, no misunderstanding, no gossip, no betrayal, no comparisons, and the feeling of inadequacy that results. We will be free from sin. And we will also be free from the consequences of sin, suffering. All the things that bring us pain in this life, sickness, abuse, mental illness, disability, financial stress, broken relationships, death. They will not exist in the new creation. They cannot hurt us anymore. But it's not only an end to suffering and sin that we experience, it's a dramatic swing to the very opposite end of the spectrum. We will live in constant joy, experiencing pleasure forever. Psalm 16:11 says that we will experience joy in God's presence, eternal pleasure at His right hand. Where does this joy and pleasure come from? Well, you see, a resurrected body, a beautiful, safe new creation, an end to sin and suffering, those things culminate in being in God's presence. Revelation 21 verse 3 says God's dwelling place is now among His people, and He will dwell with them. They will be His people, and God Himself will be with them and be their God. God will dwell with us. See, one of the things I've enjoyed most about being a mum is that I'm the one who's able to comfort my daughters in a way that no one else can. When one of them is sad or hurting, I can pick her up, take her in my arms, her head snuggles into my chest, and her sobs subside, her breathing calms. She knows that in my arms she is safe and secure, that nothing bad can happen to her there. And so it is with God. He will take the cancer-riddled, the grieving, the disabled, the depressed, the broken in his arms. He will hold us close and he will wipe every tear from our eyes. And there will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain, for the old order of things has passed away. Instead, there will be great joy as God wipes our tears and we see Jesus face to face. And when we look into Jesus' face and he looks back at us, we will see in him the fulfillment of all our longings, the satisfaction of all our desires. We will know perfect love, peace and joy, perfect truth, justice, holiness and wisdom, perfect goodness, power and beauty. And with joy in our hearts, we will raise our voices to join with the saints and sing, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty, who was and is to come." And this hope that we have, it's not just a vague future hope, it impacts the here and now. Knowing the future changes the present. And so as you struggle with sickness, know that your body will one day be whole and healthy. As you struggle with guilt and failure, know that you will one day be free from sin. As you struggle with relationship breakdown, know that one day there will be peace and harmony. And as you struggle to get out of bed, to make it through each day, know that your future days will be spent around the throne, gazing upon Jesus, your Father wiping every tear from your eye. Bring on that day. Come, Lord Jesus. Amen.
Hey Jules,
Nat,
how's your 2020 going?
it's going better than it was when school wasn't open.
Fair call. Homeschooling, not
It wasn't my favourite time at all.
with
no.
three
Yeah.
boys in three different stages.
Three
Are they
different
three different
stages.
stages. Yep.
Three different approaches and three different platforms. So
And three different boys actually.
three different
Very
boys,
different from each other.
Just started a new job. It wasn't a great time.
Yeah. Your 2019 was also no walk in the park.
It wasn't a picnic, no.
No, that was a
No.
pretty rough year. Tell us about, your life sucking. That's not what I want to say. But tell us about your 2019. Tell us about your life and your story.
In many ways, 2019, although it was a bit of a difficult year, was a turning point for me. The boys and I'd been coming here to St Matt's for maybe, a year and a half prior to that. And I was kind of testing the waters and, checking things out a little bit, seeing how it fitted, I suppose, the whole Christianity thing. But in late 2019, I made the decision to become a Christian.
So it fitted.
Sorry?
So it fitted. Yeah.
So it seems to fit. So that, I guess that was sort of the upside.
Yeah.
But I guess what led me to that was kind of a series of fairly major things going wrong, one after another, probably looking back on it over quite a long period of time, coinciding with really great things happening like the boys being born. But a whole lot of things just went wrong, one after the other. And I suppose that the one thing that I'd always relied upon that defined me, that shouldn't have, but did and to some extent still does, is work. And in 2019 I took a redundancy, and that was the bottom of my world falling out.
Yeah.
So that was the thing I was most scared of. And it was the thing I lost sleep over probably the most, was the fear of losing my job.
Yep.
And then it happened.
As a single mum, that's a pretty...
We just bought a house.
Yep.
Things were going great right up until
Yeah.
Christmas, and then by the middle of 2019 things weren't so great.
Yeah.
And so I left, and a whole new world opened up really at that point. So then I kind of came to realise that perhaps I wasn't quite as in charge of things as perhaps I thought, and that maybe someone else was.
So tell me, what is it that you understood or learnt, or why is it Jesus that you would turn to, I guess?
So I'm going to go to yoga, and I know we've had conversations about this before, and that perhaps yoga and maybe some of the Indian philosophy is not exactly aligned to Christianity, but I studied or practiced yoga for a good 15 years with the same teacher in Newtown, and she would always talk about your higher power, and she used to talk about your HP, like it was the special sauce, and a lot of people in the class would kind of go, so here she goes again, sort of thing. But she was really adamant that yoga was all about accessing the divine, and she would always call it God and say, you can call it whatever you like, whatever sort of gets you there. So I'd always had, or for a really long time, had this kind of, I don't know, higher power, if you like.
Yep.
And I suppose it just took me a long time to work out or to recognise what that was.
Yeah.
That it wasn't just some sort of magical universe sort of thing.
Yep.
That it actually was a divine power.
Yeah. I remember you've told me before slightly horrible stories about you went to a high school that was Christian, but sounds pretty...
It wasn't.
Nasty.
I don't think it was the best example.
So super strict.
Super strict and super controlling, very judgmental. I mean, the good thing out of it is that I sort of did learn a little bit about the Bible.
Yeah.
And about who Jesus was and what he, I suppose, stood for, and the story. But you could only be a Christian if you're a certain type. Or if you fitted a particular mould.
Yeah.
You couldn't, you couldn't like music, you couldn't read non-Christian literature. It was really quite strict.
Yeah.
And ideal for rebelling against.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I'd rebel against that for sure.
So I didn't have a great experience with Christianity in high school, and prior to that as well. So I hadn't really had any positive experience with the church.
So what made you come to church?
Well, we had just moved to West Pymble. You had a part to play in this. And the three boys, they're 2 years apart, but their birthdays are in November and December. So being the efficient single mum that I am, I have one party per year, and it's a joint birthday party. So we moved here, didn't know anyone. Invite all your friends. So it was kind of, we ended up with 30 kids at Luna Park, because that was somehow a good idea. In torrential rain, I didn't not just not know any of the kids, I didn't know any of the parents, and because of the age range, people just dropped their kids off, and I was like, oh, I thought you were all going to stay. It was just at that sort of tipping point, where people start leaving their kids there.
Yep.
Anyway, so it was slightly stressful, and I met you for the first time, I think, at that party. Or no,
I think we met
WhatsApp.
in a car park a couple of days
That's right,
prior.
another party, another
Yep.
kids' party. But I knew that you were doing or had just finished your masters, and I had just done my masters a year or two before, just finished them, and kind of knew how difficult it was to do it as working and being a mum and all of that. So I said to you, "Oh, so what's your masters in?" Expecting you to say something other than theology. So I was completely stumped at that, and I'm not often lost for words, as you know, but I just had nowhere to go when you said that. I was like, oh, I couldn't even say that's interesting. So I just went to the only thing that was in my brain, which was, as a teenager, I used to go to church on Christmas Eve. We used to have candles and sit up the back and sing the songs. It was really lovely. And you probably said, you should come to St. Matt's. on Christmas Eve, and of course I couldn't refuse. So we came, and that was a revelation to me. It was the first time I'd stepped foot inside a church in decades, and I'd been very kind of protective of the kids, didn't want them, studying religion or anything. And we came here, and it didn't feel weird or bad or creepy, which was a surprise for me.
Very glad.
And then the actual, the service itself was just great, a lot of fun. So the boys and I decided we might come back. And so that's sort of how that all happened. So, yeah.
And we started reading the Bible together.
We did.
After a little while.
Yeah, we did.
And worked our way through Christianity Explored.
We did.
And so what was it that happened that made you go, okay, I'm ready to sign on the dotted line? I remember asking you and saying, come on then, what are you going to do? Are you going to say yes to Jesus or say no to Jesus, but you can't sort of tread water forever?
I think you asked me whether I was ready to wear the T-shirt.
And you bought a Hope T-shirt, right?
I did.
Yeah. So we've come a long way, you guys.
We've come a long way. It wasn't one particular thing. It was just a slow dawning of realisation that it was probably true.
Yep.
Being a scientist or having a scientific background, I'm very analytical and there's a whole lot of belief stuff in here.
Yep.
So I had to suspend belief for a period of time until it sort of, again, just dawned on me, well, actually, this whole story is referenced in other records of history.
Yeah.
Not just in the stuff, that's in the Bible. So I think it was that sort of realisation, this must be true. And then if that's true, there's no choice, really.
Yeah.
There's kind of no choice. And there's no downside, really, even if it's not true.
But it is.
But it was moving from having to believe in something to not having to believe in something. So that freedom from sort of having to believe in some sort of thing or philosophy, it just is.
Yeah. And so, despite lots of hard things in 2019, including your ex passed away.
Yeah, so I took the redundancy on the Friday.
Yeah.
And then we had our women's group meeting on the Monday night.
Yeah.
And I realised how sort of flawed I was when I couldn't say anything about it. That was Monday night. And then on Tuesday morning I found out that my ex-husband had passed away, somewhat unexpectedly. So that was just, that was when I kind of thought, come on.
Yeah.
What else? Surely that's it. So that was devastating.
And 2020 has not turned out to be the magical fairy tale year that so many of us were hoping for. But notwithstanding a global pandemic, how has following Jesus changed what your life looks like, or changed how you feel about your life, how you face the challenges that you face? Yeah, what's different?
I think the source of strength is now clearer and potentially more reliable. So, and that's a great comfort.
Yeah.
Seeing my kids kind of understand it and talk about it is really good for us as a family.
I love talking about Jesus with your kids.
They're quite, well, especially Alistair.
Yeah, he is a thinker.
He is a thinker. And so he and I have actually kind of bumbled our way through a lot of stuff together, which has been great.
Yeah, awesome.
Learning with him. But even Rory, who still flatly refuses to go to church, he'll come, but he won't go to kids' church still, and he doesn't want to come. He will come out with a whole lot of stuff that he's just picked up.
Yeah.
So it's it's a comfort for me to know that they've got that grounding, but they've got it in a good way, not the same way that I had it.
Yeah. And you're part of a growth group.
I am, although I haven't been for so long because of COVID.
That'll do it for you. But but you've gained friends here.
Absolutely. So I when you asked me to do this, I just started to write a couple of things down, and one of the things was the people.
Yeah.
And I kind of ran out of room because it's people that I've met, making lunches in the the canteen here for kids club, not kids club, vacation care, sandwich, and I suppose all through different groups, growth groups, and then also sort of identifying those that are part of the school group as well. Yeah. So no, that's made a huge difference.
Yeah, being part of...
And people in my street, there's like 3 or 4 people in my street as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So being part of the family of God, really.
Mm.
Yeah. And I know for the boys, they've got, like their kids' church leaders have been really helpful and important to them as well. Shout out to the kids' church leaders.
Yeah.
Rock on, you guys.
And that is really important for them. I mean, they don't have a dad, they don't have a father figure, so to have those sorts of people in their lives is really, really important.
Yeah, to see all sorts of different people who follow Jesus and take him seriously.
Yeah.
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 So if there's someone watching who's sitting on the fence like you were, or who's struggling to keep trusting in Jesus, I don't know, what would you say to them?
I'd probably say just give it time. Because it's bound to happen. It took me quite a while.
Yeah.
But it's true. He moves in mysterious ways.
Yeah.
It's sort of for me, I can kind of plot back to certain points, and how the heck did I end up here in West Pymble? And it's been a step-by-step kind of process, being drawn here, being guided here, and then being sort of guided. Okay, no, we'll go. We'll do this and we'll do that. So I just say, be patient if you're sitting on the fence. I wouldn't look for signs or writing in the sky or anything like that, but I think that it will come.
I don't know what would have happened with you if there was writing in the sky. I feel like that would have put you well off. It's just not your jam.
It's just not my... No, it wouldn't have been. No.
The slow drip.
Yeah, that's right.
But if it's true, the truth will out.
Yes, and that's right. And I'm a big believer in truth.
Yeah.
So getting to that is kind of, that's part of the process and the journey, but that's the point.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks heaps, Jules.
No worries, no.
Well, we've heard a lot tonight and seen God at work in women's lives in wonderful and remarkable ways. We're going to take a few moments now in our groups to pray and thank God for who he is and for what he's done, for what he's like and for the blessings he's bestowed on us. After a little while, I'm going to ask you to stop and write 2 lines of a prayer that we can build together with contributions from everyone watching today and distribute as a response to what we've heard. So take 5 minutes now to pray. So I want to ask you to take a few moments now to write 2 lines of prayer in a group, as your group. Then someone from the group can email or message them to me, and we'll compile all the contributions into a single prayer to distribute to everyone. As we wind up today, let me say a public thanks to all our speakers, to those who prepared talks and testimonies, and to our musos, our amazing lady musos, especially Sharon, who organised so much, to our hosts for opening their homes, to Will for his work on the tech stuff. I hope today has been a blessing to everyone. Let me leave you with these words from 1 Peter. Praise be to the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. In his great mercy, he has given us new birth into a living hope through the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead, and into an inheritance that can never perish, spoil, or fade. This inheritance is kept in heaven for you, who through faith are shielded by God's power until the coming of the salvation that is ready to be revealed in the last time. In all this you greatly rejoice, though now for a little while you may have had to suffer grief in all kinds of trials. These have come so that the proven genuineness of your faith, of greater worth than gold, which perishes even though refined by fire, may result in praise, glory, and honour when Jesus Christ is revealed. Though you have not seen him, you love him, and even though you do not see him now, you believe in him and are filled with an inexpressible and glorious joy, for you are receiving the end result of your faith, the salvation of your souls.